On Lagos television, and of course, we all know this is the Lagos segment of the program. Today, we're focusing on a very important sector that the Lagos state government has intentionally paid due attention to, that is support for people with disabilities. In line with Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's Themes Plus agenda, Lagos continues to push for inclusiveness, dignity, and equal opportunities. Now, joining me this morning to shed more light on the progress made so far is Adenike Oyetunde Lawal, the General Manager of the Lagos State Office for Disability Affairs, LASODA. She's been at the forefront of driving advocacy, policy implementation, and empowerment for people living with disabilities across the state. Madam, it's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Me. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like you to take us through this journey. For those who do not know the situation of people before LASODA was created, I'd like you to take us through the journey.
Okay, so the journey to establishing an agency that oversees, supersedes concerns for persons with disabilities started under the administration of the now president, Bola Tinubu, when he was in Lagos. And conversations have started with stakeholders. Eventually, it morphed into creating a special people's law that was signed by Governor Babatunde Raji-Fashola back then, and established the agency. Now, the agency has been in existence since then, and the special people's law of 2010 as amended 2015, and we're working on another amendment at the moment, saddled the government with establishing an agency. And amongst the many responsibilities that the agency is primarily about concerns for persons with disabilities. And you would agree with me that from when the conversation started up until now, even the knowledge that we know, the exposure, the awareness is increasing. And what that means is the law needs to also morph with time. I'll give you a typical example. There was a time it was adequate and ideal to call a person with a certain form of neurological disability as imbecile. You dare not make that reference now. Or, saying persons with living with disabilities.
As
Globally
disabled.
speaking, yes, globally speaking, living with disability is no longer acceptable. And with disabled, the conversation, there are two schools of thoughts.
Okay.
Now, the intent and the usage plays a huge role. Quite often when people say disabled, people are denigrating the personalities of these individuals. And first and foremost, you must see the individual before the disability. So case in point, you can't say that girl with one leg. You can ideally and should actually say, oh, the lady that has a low cut with, that is tall, that always wears a smile. When the person is now struggling to remember, that lady, you dare not morph into quickly, oh, that one that has one leg. Because you must identify the person first before the disability. And that is one of just a spectrum of what the agency has been able to do to create this form of education and to show that in a state like Lagos, we have quite a number of persons, with disabilities. And as we speak, I think about 3, 4, 5 years ago, the individuals with disabilities and the different groups have been able to morph themselves into what we call clusters. And the clusters range from, but are not included to, blind, deaf blindness, persons with albinism, dwarfism, persons with cerebral palsy. For the cerebral palsy individuals, people with Down syndrome, the people with autism, they're all under neurological and intellectual disabilities, and they're all under one group. For persons that have survived leprosy, they're also in one group. For persons that have lived with physical disabilities like myself, they're all under one group. So in overall, we have between 10 to 11 clusters in Lagos State. And these cluster divisions has nothing to do with the state government. It was the community, the stakeholders that decided that for ease, administrative ease and convenience, it'll be great for them to subsume themselves under different clusters. Now, what it means is that under each cluster, for instance, there are several non-profits and associations. If I take the blind, for instance, it means that there are over 100 associations, registered under the blind categories. And basically, it's so that when individuals like yourselves or an organization like LTV says, oh, we would like to work with LASODA, we always ask, do you have a specificity of the type of disabilities oh yes we do, so we know where to go to, who to speak with, and what kind of interventions to do. So,
okay. As a follow-up, I need to find out, because you were talking about residents on how to address people. So how do people now start to draw the line between empathy and, of course, pity?
So I would say that because I'm a person with disability myself, I have come to terms with the fact that one cannot live this life without God. And I mentioned the God factor because it becomes the underlying tool that you use to ascertain the intentions.
Fantastic, yeah.
A lot of the times, even when people use disabled, they don't mean to denigrate. And so when you are able to on the spot identify that this person just needs to be educated, you will not, you are not up in arms and shouting, and the conversation may go. Sometimes I'm not even in the mood to have those conversations. Sometimes I take telephone numbers, and 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even that evening to say, oh, as a follow-up, I met you earlier in the day, but I just wanted. So people are always, thank you so much for showing this understanding. I didn't think about it. I never considered it. So I believe very strongly that it's on a per case basis. But it's very important to say that empathizing with someone simply means that you want to put yourself in their shoes. You cannot put yourself. So when people are trying to be so funny to say, oh, everybody has a disability. No, not everyone has a disability. And the interesting thing for me is usually non-disabled people who like to fight and make that point. No, you don't have a disability. But they try to say it from the standpoint of, oh, we are all the same. We are not all the same. The indices of our realities differ. The circumstances of how we live completely differ. And because of that, we cannot all jokingly say, oh, we all have disabilities. I would normally talk about people who wear glasses. And everybody just forgets that the person that wears glasses simply is a person with disability, because you are being aided to see. Without it, whether it's to see figures, individuals, or read, there's an aid. But again, through the years, don't forget that there's a perception, there's a reality. So many people, even with disabilities, do not identify as persons with disabilities because of the stigmatization and all that the societal barriers that exist with that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, having listed out some of the programs of LASODA, and also, when you look at the current state of inclusivity here in Lagos, let's leave Nigeria now, here in Lagos, at what point are we?
If I'm honest to you, I'll be very selfish to give figures. But I can tell you that there's a lot of work to be done. And I say this because Lagos State has well over 100 MDAs. And the purpose is not to saddle the agency with the sole responsibility to cater for all persons with disabilities. But the agency was established to awaken every MDA to their responsibility in ensuring that truly, in actual facts, whether it's a budgetary line, whether it's specific programs, but they are particularly catering to a class of individuals called persons with disabilities. And that way it becomes putting our words into action as against just saying it. Now, Lagos continues to champion the cause across the country, because away from being the first state to have the law codified, and then, if we are not careful, we'll start to play catch up with other states. But today, you realize that we do not have a level playing field across all 36 states. There isn't a level playing field. So there aren't rules to say one state is doing fantastically well and others aren't. Well, it's easy for us to say the ones that do not even have agencies or bodies or even laws are not doing well. But even many of the ones that have laws, the question is, are the government, putting political will behind it? Because political will is what makes the work easier. In Lagos, for instance, for the first time, there have been so many other things, from providing civil servants with work and assistive tools, for instance. For people who know, what that entails, it requires a huge amount of funding. And Lagos State still beats her chest as the highest employer of persons with disability, both in the private sector and in the public sector. We are not up to 1,000. And yes, we're not up to 1,000. Yes, we aren't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it means that even so you can see it's okay to bring up these grandiose we are the best.
Albinism and all
we're not, no, I mean civil servants
civil servants,
employed.
okay.
We're
okay.
not up to 1,000.
Okay.
But for the persons with disability in Lagos, we're almost nearing maybe between 3 to 5 million.
Okay.
So overall, and these are people who have identified themselves as persons with disabilities.
So
Don't forget.
Who haven't
Yes, and
identified
I will chip in. We started a project with the Scholarship Board last year to give scholarship for persons with disability across the Lagos State owned and run institutions. And the purpose was to ensure that these persons are known by their schools. So we didn't ask them to come to us. We sent the letters to all their schools and told their schools to reply them with a collation of all their students with disabilities. I don't think that they thought the scholarship will pull through. It eventually did pull through, and the pressure is insane. And we're sending them right back to their schools to say, first and foremost, your schools must identify that you are people with disabilities. Because let's be very factual. Yes, I know that structural limitations are there. But there are other adaptations that can be done in certain schools if only they know that you are a person with disability. Officially, not by words. The lecturer is seeing you in class, okay, great, but does the school know that you are a person with disability? Have you been to the school? Does the Dean of Student Affairs know that you need to sit in front? The little conversations that need to be had. And when you sit with these individuals, the reasons vary from person to person. Away from knowledge, away from information, a lot of it is because of stigma. They are scared, they are unsure. So what if I identify? Do I lose certain things? When in actual fact, you get to benefit quite a number of things. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's so much that we're hoping to take, for instance, the Masses Children's Hospital that is undergoing. Mr. Governor gave his word that there will be an early intervention directorate. Now, early intervention is very important for neurological disabilities or even several types of disabilities. Don't forget, we also live in Africa. We're also cultural. So when things are not known by people, or they'll go all the traditional route. When the child now clocks 6, 7, we now start to come back. When the first 5 years are so key, it doesn't mean that in the 6th or 7th year there cannot be reversals, but it's a lot of work. So early intervention overwhelmingly is one of the key factors that will reduce the attendant increase, because it's increasing. When you see women who go through distressed pregnancies, for several reasons. I want to have a child like a Hebrew woman, or nobody has ever had a child in our hospital, in our family in a hospital. We always use the traditional attendants. Not to say that those don't work, but on a per case basis, you know when a woman is going into distress. And once oxygen is cut from a brain, that's it. So there are many people who have children with maybe cerebral palsy, for instance.
Even hydrocephalus.
Exactly. And then you realize that because they fail to have the early intervention at a government facility, because having these interventions at private-owned institutions are available, but they are really expensive. So we're hopeful, that the early intervention would also help in that regard.
I'm glad that you added that they're very expensive, even though they are available,
yes,
because I'm a mother of one of such children. And I know what we went through to get him up and working today. So earlier you talked about collaborations with some MDAs, and there are two I really want you to highlight for us right now. That's the two that has almost the same pronunciation when it comes to LASPA. LASPA for the physical planning, and LASPA for the parking authority. I know you've been working very well with them.
So what we decided to do this year was to pay visits to agencies. Now, from our findings...
Have you been to LTV?
No, we haven't, not yet.
Okay.
We will come. We will come.
Okay.
From our findings, we realized that we have all been working in silos. And our jobs are interconnected. For the parking authority, is very simple. Our law, the Special People's Law, mandates that everybody must have special parking. And because there's special parking, it means that if we go there and it's is properly signaled. There is a designated parking lot, different type of person that you've never known. What stigmatization also exposes, it exposes the level that parenting, the assignment, I beg your pardon, that parenting involves. You must expose your children to a different spectrum of people that they are used
This is
to.
very intentional parenting.
Yep,
comes in.
very intentional parenting. There are many movies, there are cartoons for children that show them different types of, there are Nigerian authors that have written books about disabilities. We must do that, especially from the children. As adults, I always say this, that people don't know how biased they are about disability until their only sibling shows up to say, oh, I'm getting married, and boom, you just say a girl that is blind or a blind boy. Many people pull their, are you okay? And you hear, is this the only person in the whole world? The biases are there, but we don't see them until they hit home.
Faces, yeah.
And when they hit home, you realize that for persons with disabilities, yeah, life just plays out completely differently, but it doesn't mean that life doesn't play out. So we must continue the conversation. Why I mentioned church first is because I'm Christian, and I see that when even pastors are preaching, subtle nuances. My pastor, for instance, he made one day, and the next service when he went to church, on the pulpit, he said, oh, Adenike called me out, because he didn't think about it. Not like he intended to demean anyone, but in actual fact, that you have made a joke and you didn't know doesn't mean that I don't feel discriminated against. It just means at the point where I mentioned to you, it means please stop it and own up and tell every other person. So all of us must stop it. Stigmatization at the workplace. And that's why we are hopeful to follow very soon what the National Commission for PWDs in Abuja has done. So there's a policy about employment, for instance, and people who employ PWDs get to enjoy something called the disability cost covered. But there are several things, and applications can be made. But the most idealistic thing is if it is simple adaptations that can be done, you don't expect to run straight to the government. If you're employing like maybe 5-10 PWDs, that's a different conversation altogether. But stigmatization will continue until we start to hold ourselves responsibility. Every single one of us. We see a person with albinism, we are not laughing at them. We are not calling them albinos or affin. Persons with albinism, I don't know how Yoruba is going to morph, but I promise you that language needs to evolve, even with setting terms.
Okay.
I was at a conversation the upper week, and someone was talking about private parts with children, and that in Igbo language is just one word for all the private parts, and they said no, that you need to tell this part, this part, this part. So I was just telling my friend that maybe I was telling them the other day that language needs to evolve, even with disability terminology. So it must evolve. Yoruba doesn't have many words. The word that we use for Yoruba for these persons with disability is so denigrating. I don't know any Yoruba knowing and speaking person that haven't sat with and said, I never thought about this. So yes, evolution in our language, in how we carry out our religious belief systems, the culture as well, even Nollywood entertainment. Yeah. So this stigmatization, we see them, they make jokes, skit makers make jokes of it. There was one that was trending recently, Pella. He was doing one very interesting dance that was mimicking the similitude of a person with cerebral palsy. I didn't want the government and the agency to put out a statement, so we took a different route, to address it. Yes, we got to the young man eventually, because many people, it is not front burner conversation. If you don't have a person with disability in your your neighbor, your church member,
your face,
many people don't pay attention to it. So yes.
But sorry, this I just thought about it too. Can it be inculcated in schools, like you have curriculum. It in the school curriculum? Like, I don't know if they still have moral instruction now.
No,
we don't have it anymore. But if there's a way that can also be taught in schools, this would also help.
So what, not this year, I'm going to be honest, I don't know how to lie.
Of course, not this year.
But there's a model that DSVA has adopted. Okay. And I'm hopeful that we can take the conversation to secondary schools next year, so that they also understand, because they have classmates that are PWDs. Many of them do, especially in the government schools. So because the education is inclusive, it's not It's not selective education. So we are hopeful that that will be, soon to come projects. So we can take it. It may not be the moral instruction. It might just be all those social clubs.
Okay.
And yeah. So.
Okay, I'm going to go a bit personal
Okay.
with you.
Oh, wow.
Because, looking and listening to you, you are a beacon of hope. You are a beacon of, strength.
Wow.
And the goal spirit and to do spirit. We know you're a lawyer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I want to find out how your experience, and being a lawyer and being an advocate has prepared you for the role you're in today.
So I know that my life is very interesting, and I was having a conversation with someone about future plans, and I'm just one of those who I've never had a 5-year plan. When people say that, I've just never had it.
So you just take each day as it comes?
I've just never had it. And I used to say that I had a 5-year circle where every 5th year something dramatic, drastic is happening until I have a better understanding of my work with God. I lost my limb in my 2nd year. It was not on my bingo card in my entire life that this was going to happen to me. But and to be honest with you, I believe strongly that some of us are born positive. I happen to be in that category.
Okay.
I also happen to believe that I've also had to learn to be strong at a certain point in time. Because I'm the only child of both my parents. So I had to raise up at a certain point. But after a while, I'm like, you know what, everybody take like your responsibility and just leave me be. I lost my limb in my 2nd year in university, but I wanted to study law. Nobody forced me. I just always wanted to be. I grew up in Igwe. So the first female federal High Court justice I saw as a child was the first woman in my life that I saw garner so much respect. I couldn't believe it. I still have the picture. Everybody was standing up and saluting. I'm like, who is this? So that was my first interest to law. And because I used to talk.
Beautiful woman, I think.
I have no idea. You know, funny thing is, I don't even know who she is. I don't know. Because I grew up somewhere not so far from Queen's Drive. It used to be called Queen's Drive then. And Federal High Court is situated on Queen's Drive. So talkative, you're going to be a lawyer, okay, maybe this thing. And then I would always play that scenario. It's interesting that I'm not practicing, because as soon as I got called to bar, I dropped it, because I'm like, nope, this isn't going to be for me. But from the 2nd year, I knew that I wanted to graduate with my year, So I told them to take me to the hospital to school from the hospital after my last course of chemotherapy, so I could write my exam. Because if I missed that semester's exam, it would have meant I would have had to have an extra year. I had missed one. That semester, I took almost 18 courses of 40 units each, and because I just wanted to say, you guys, I need to do this thing. Has it been easy? I feel very strongly that for a person like me who believes in Jesus, it's been easy, because the only way I can explain it is, you are going through the valley of the shadow of death. You can see darkness. But there's something pushing you, and when you get out of that season and you're explaining to someone else, you can also testify of how grievous how hard that time was, but that you kept going. So there's a resolute spirit that I carry, and it's only the Holy Spirit. I don't have any 60 steps that's what I would normally say. So I've always moved. I don't wake up every day trying to inspire anyone. I'm being honest. I'm so unconnected with inspiring anybody's lives. I just want to stay in my lane. But I cannot take away from the fact that I know that people look up to me. And it's some responsibility I didn't ask for, but I just continue in my steps to stay. Has it been worth my while? I believe it has. I'm going to be 40 next year, and I'm sitting down and I've been thinking about it, that I'm almost at the precipice of the point where equality. I lost my limb when I was 20. Another 20 years have been added. I'm like, this is very fascinating. So yeah, my life is really beautiful to watch, I believe.
Okay, in as much as you said that you've not tried to inspire anybody, you have inspired me, and I'm sure you have inspired many other people. Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing, that journey with us, and instead, they can now, redefine, who they are, and not allow their situation,
define them.
define them. Thank you very, very much, Adenike Oyetunde Lawal, General Manager, Lagos State Office for Disability Affairs, and we have talked extensively about the Lagos State government support for people with disability, and of course a bit about herself. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're going on a short break. When we come back, the conversation continues.